After over 30 years of working across hundreds of organisations and working in, on, leading or assuring over 200 change programmes, I finally got round to co-authoring a book. It's aimed at supporting those managing in the middle of organisations and is grounded in primary research about the biggest barriers to achieving their potential. So today I'm going to share why I wanted to write and what finally encouraged me to get round to it. Perhaps that will prompt you to think about how you use writing and storytelling in your work. The headlines from the 8 key findings of our research to help you and your teams unblock the true potential of your managers. And finally, a few insights into how you might start your journey to get published too, if listening to this inspires you to take the plunge. So let's start with writing. I've always enjoyed writing. I love words, the lyrical sense of them, the sheer variety we have in the English language, the playfulness of tone. As a teenager, it was poems and short stories, the joy of writing a long letter to a pen pal in the days before email. And as life got busier, I kept reading, but I stopped writing. Then as my career progressed, I got back into writing, mainly as an exercise in communicating with teams. And I started to see the benefits of the effectiveness of creative writing at work, especially as what I was doing centered on leading people through change. Compelling narratives, storytelling, these were all essential tools to underpin my craft. And I believe this is both underused and undervalued at work. Even if we take the time to write, and how many of us do that, what kinds of things are we writing? As leaders, we focus very much on the why, setting that big picture scene and the headlines of what's going to happen. But thinking about the how we tell that story in a way which is compelling and wins hearts and minds, is critical to how we lead our people. And so the hankering to write a book returned. At one point, I semi-retired with a plan to get a non-exec portfolio, volunteer for things that matter to me, and write a book. And when I tell my 3-part career story in headlines, this bit is always followed by the throwaway line, so I have the non-exec portfolio, I still volunteer, but I only got 3 chapters into the book before I realised I was bored and needed something else to do. It works as a narrative bridge to get me to the final part of my story, but it really does do the book bit a disservice. As I said at the start, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of organisations in my career, and only as I've got older can I see the real value in the breadth and depth of that, and I realise just what a privilege it is. Such diversity of experiences, perspectives and situations to draw on, and a great collection of tools and techniques gathered on the way to reach back to in whatever unique combination the next situation requires. As I started to coach people, I realised the richness of these experiences provided narrative and storytelling to help people frame their challenges and think about how they might address them. I began to notice the commonality in the issues that people shared with me and the stories that I returned to again and again. And I started to see trends around a handful of themes which affected all people, no matter what point they were at in their career. I'm not sure any of this was particularly conscious until one day, over a drink in a seafront hotel bar in Brighton, a long-standing contact and good friend of mine asked if I'd like to write a book with her. My instinctive yes came from this long-held desire to write, this feeling that my experiences meant there was something worth saying. I didn't even ask what we were writing about before I said yes. Diana was convinced that those in the middle of organisations needed something practical to help them navigate the pressures they were facing in the world of work. She's curious, has an inquiring mind, she reads business books widely, and wanted whatever we produced to be grounded in research that she would enjoy doing. And I loved that she brought all that to the partnership because it meant I got the opportunity to write at last. And so to what we discovered as we wrote, which I hope will be insightful for you and your teams. It's fair to say it's been fascinating watching the world of work change over the past 30 years or so. There were significant moments that felt like revolution, others that were a more subtle evolution, sometimes only noticeable after they'd happened. However we got to where we are, there's no getting away from the fact that it's a different place entirely. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, changing societal context, accelerating technological advancement, creating this sense of always being on, blurring the boundaries between work and life, increasing demands for cross-team or organisational collaboration, new desires from the next generation entering the workforce. Now, there are many fine publications on all of these contextual changes, and there are some very clever futurologists willing to predict what might come next in this unpredictable world of ours. But there is no doubt that the world of work is now more people-centred, more human. Hard management principles and protocols have given way to a style of leadership that has people and purpose at its heart. Now, that doesn't mean there's any less focus on delivery, results, or success. In some ways, that's only increased. But there is at last an acknowledgement that it's people that deliver this. And we could see that the engine room for delivery is the great swathe of those managing in the middle. They power organisations. And our hypothesis was that no matter how drastically different the world of work is, the same fundamental challenges for managers remain. Those thorny issues that everyone has to grapple with. Things that, if they could excel at, would make a real difference to what they do, how they do it, and how they feel about it. So we tested this theory through research with managers across all sectors, one-to-one conversations, focus groups, and workshops. Were we right that fundamental challenges existed? And if so, which were the ones where support from a book would make the biggest difference? What I loved about this process was not only did it confirm the book was much needed, but it also gave us a really clear steer about what we should focus on for the book to have the greatest impact on those who read it. And it made it really easy for us to structure the book around the 8 common themes, which we split across 2 sections. So the first section of the book picks up the 4 dominant themes managers told us they were having to navigate when it came to their operating context, and why it was a barrier to them really stepping up and taking ownership of situations. They felt they were in that tough place, stuck between strategy and delivery, coping with demands from above, while at the same time trying to manage the needs of their teams. Now, I should say that the importance of context is prevalent in every theme in the book. But what was evident was the impact of the changing demands of needing to be more externally focused, as the world of work reflected the societal trends of being more interconnected and dependent than ever before. The reduction in the importance of hierarchy as organisations flatten and power dynamics change, and the need to cope with a range of very different perspectives. Managers told us that in order to perform well in this kind of environment, they really needed to develop and use their influence effectively. Building reputation and visibility is the bedrock of this, as is building a compelling argument that can maximise your chances of success when you come to use your influence in earnest. But the environment we all work in is changing. It's much more unpredictable and ambiguous than ever before. The days of having a plan and executing it are gone. And there was a real desire amongst managers to understand, how do you navigate that? Switching their mindset from planning to preparedness, it's such an important shift for all of us to succeed in the modern world of work. And this means being really clear about purpose and outcomes and really relaxed about the routes you use to reach that destination. It might be the one you chose at the outset, but you might deviate from it on the way, and maybe more than once. And indeed, you might not know that you need a change of direction until you literally reach that fork in the road. Well, to do that well, you'll find yourself needing to embrace uncertainty and not fear the inevitable setbacks encountered on the journey. And this is a significant shift in mindset, as it means not fearing mistakes. Instead, choosing to embrace whatever learning arises from any situation. And I always say there's no such thing as failure, only learning. So having a learning focus requires you to find ways to frame your way out of setbacks that will help keep the preparedness focus on the outcomes you want to achieve. And this all informs how managers can step up and take ownership within their role. So not fearing mistakes and setbacks is a major part of that, as is having clarity about what you want to achieve. But most important of all is how you create your own permission environment, recognising opportunities for change when they present themselves to you. And there's a direct read across from this into the last theme about context that managers talk to us about: implementing change successfully. The only certainty we have in the ambiguous and fast-paced world of work is that at some point things will change. And clarity is important again here, a clear motivation for that change that can be easily and clearly articulated to anyone who needs to come on that journey. As is understanding that the journey is about human, emotional and behavioural changes. In my experience, so many change initiatives focus on the what, when the how is what really delivers the benefit of lasting change. Every change is a behavioural change programme. So in summaries, managers told us that the 4 biggest challenges they faced in their operating context were firstly, creating an environment which enables a growth mindset, so they are comfortable taking ownership. Secondly, shifting their focus from planning to preparedness so they could navigate an increasingly ambiguous and changing world. Thirdly, enabling them to influence impactfully. And fourthly, giving them the tools to implement and navigate change well. But of course, understanding and being able to navigate your context is only part of the challenge. The second section of the book addresses the 4 key themes from our research around people. As I often say, it is always about the people. I'm asked so frequently what I think is most important for success. Is it having a clear vision? Is it about having a well-defined plan? Is it about having the right budget and resources? And my response is always the same. It's always about the people. I've seen crystal clear visions, perfectly curated plans, and all the resources you can handle not produce the desired results. Whereas I've also seen a germ of an idea with a half thought through plan and resources which mean the team live hand to mouth. But with the right team of people in terms of skills, experience and attitude, magic can happen. I also believe that managers and leaders only have one responsibility, and that's to create an environment which allows people to be the best version of themselves. And you can't do that until you find kindness, compassion, and appreciation for yourself. Then you can offer the same to others. And being that kind of leader starts with you, finding your authentic self, developing your self-awareness so you truly understand yourself, what drives you, why you work, what matters to you, and where your blind spots are. To lead, you need to find the right balance between confidence and humility. The confidence to put your head above the parapet, but the humility to know you don't have all the answers. If you have the former without the latter, well, then confidence tips into arrogance, which is never attractive. But knowing yourself, developing your self-awareness, and then looking after yourself are essential to authenticity. You can't put someone else's oxygen mask on until your own is securely in place. And I can relate to this in a deeply personal way. And I want to share a story with you that I included in the book now. So I started my working life accidentally, definitely not according to the plan I'd hatched. I dropped out of my A-levels en route to university to buy a business I was working in for £1. The owner had had enough of trying to make it work, and with all the arrogance and ignorance of youth, I seized the opportunity. 13 years later, I found myself having started, run and sold 14 businesses in the UK and Europe, whilst at the same time finishing my A-levels, my first degree, 2 professional qualifications and an MBA. It wasn't what I'd planned, but it had consumed my life. I'd worked and studied and worked. It had been all-encompassing, and it had been so very rewarding in terms of a fabulous variety of experiences, some highs and some real lows, learning more from the lows, as you do. As I settled down, I began supporting others who were looking to start and grow their businesses. I built a non-exec portfolio. I volunteered for organisations that promote opportunity for disadvantaged people. I got involved in my local business community. And life continued to be rewarding in terms of the variety in my work. To outsiders, they would see someone who was happy and successful. But little did I know that what was driving me to work and seek success in the way that I did would soon be my undoing. I experienced a significant mental health crisis, which stopped me in my tracks. My body finally overruled my mind and shut me down. I slept for more than 16 hours a day for over 6 weeks. I had chronic headaches caused by extreme muscle tension. I was finally forced to stop. And that moment fundamentally changed the trajectory of my work and life, because it meant I took time to understand what had driven me to work the way that I did. I moved away from being mainly task-focused to being mainly people-focused. And instead of a work and personal version of me, those 2 tracks converged and I found my authentic self. And for the first time, I truly understood what authenticity meant. This rebalancing or resetting of who I was and how I worked turned out to be the greatest source of meaning, purpose, and future happiness in work and in my life. It opened up the next stage of my career as an interim, specialising in complex programmes and transformation. And it made me really determined to do what I could do to support others to get to that point of self-discovery sooner than I had, and with much less pain on the way. So speaking, teaching, coaching, mentoring all became part of my portfolio. As my career continued, I started to see what I had learned from my own experience being borne out in all sectors and organisations. Regardless of why organisations exist, how teams approach their work is by far a bigger determinant of success than what they do. And the link to authentic and purposeful leadership is so clear to me. The importance of cultures that allow people to be the best version of themselves. They ensure organisations achieve their goals considerably faster than others who don't pay attention to this. So I know from really hard-won experience that once you know yourself, you can focus on getting the best out of others. And that starts with your boss, because they have the power to do that for you, to create an environment to allow you to be the best version of yourself. So investing in that first gives you the maximum chance of succeeding. That then allows you to focus on creating a high-performing team of your own. And underpinning all of this is trust. Trust is the glue for all relationships, and it's no different at work. There are some great examples in the book of just how badly wrong things can go when trust isn't present. But when you do have a high-performing team, it will have a well-defined purpose and a culture which accelerates you to achieving those goals. And a common theme across every type of high-performing culture I've seen is feedback. It's the foundation of every great team, where it's not only freely given, but is actively sought. There's no such thing as good or bad feedback. There's just feedback. As Boris Becker once said, feedback, it's the breakfast of champions. And we're firm believers that the presence of frequent feedback is a prerequisite for every successful team. It also enables some of the harder things we have to do at work, makes them easier. That includes those difficult conversations with people who aren't performing. It also helps you iterate and improve the bane of every manager's life that we spoke to, meetings. So in summary, managers told us they needed support with 4 key things about people in order for them to perform to the best of their ability. Firstly, understanding how to develop their authentic selves, deepening their own self-awareness. Secondly, helping them learn how to get the best out of others. Thirdly, equipping them to have difficult conversations well. And fourthly, dealing with the madness of meetings. So I've shared how I came to write, and I've given you all a glimpse into the 8 key themes that managers across all organisations told us were limiting their, and by extension their organisation's potential. Has this inspired you to put pen to paper, fingers to keyboard? If so, I'd really encourage you to do so, because writing this has been a joy. It's provided so much personal learning and insight, particularly doing it with a co-author. I've seen us collaborate, make the most of our skills as a team, and I now understand what it really takes to create and publish a book. I'd encourage anyone out there thinking of doing the same to buy Alison Jones's This Book Means Business. It gives a first-time author everything you need to know about how to go about writing your first business book. We used her 10-day business book proposal challenge as a way of really putting that into practice. It sharpened and honed our ideas, and it was great getting daily feedback on how we were doing from someone who's been there and done that. At the time, we had no idea we'd end up publishing with Alison's company, Practical Inspiration, but what a lovely circularity to our journey that was. So on a personal level, this whole process has provided really new meaning to my experiences and given me a way of sharing my learning with others to hopefully support them too. Having benefited from the support and wisdom from lots of people throughout my career, it's enabled me to stay true to my commitment of trying to help as many others as I can on their journey. Ultimately, we want everyone to be able to say that they own their day once more. Thanks for listening, I'm looking forward to your questions and feedback.